Revealed. Incredible act by a black maid transforms the life of a billionaire who couldn't walk. Clara pressed the polished wooden railing, her eyes scanning the gleaming marble tiles of the grand foyer. A sudden wave of despair washed over her as she thought of her daughter, Lisa, poring over applications to medical schools. Every sweep of her cloth reminded her of the late nights she'd sacrificed, hours spent cleaning the mansion for a family that could never see the truth behind the facade of wealth. Every day, it was as if Clara's heart was heavy with unfulfilled expectations. What would happen if she couldn't secure her daughter's future? She heard the wheels of Thomas's wheelchair echo as he moved past her, his features set, tight with stoicism. Their interactions were often curt, each one a moment of tension, like a taut string pulled to the brink of snapping. How could someone so powerful be so unreachable? Clara hesitated while dusting the high shelves. She felt her fingers tremble as she traced the glass frames filled with memories of Thomas in his prime. Unfettered, did he yearn for those brighter days? The way he glared at her only intensified her sense of duty, but also her unease. She wanted him to be a man, not just a name on a corporate building. But how could she bridge that chasm? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A storm swelled inside Clara as the demands of her life clashed with those of Thomas's scripted reality. She had to fight for her daughter and simultaneously for this man imprisoned by his family's desires. Each day, she felt the dread creep in, a fear of failure. What if she couldn't help Thomas? What if his heart stayed locked away forever? The unyielding pressure made every moment at the mansion heavy, thick with unshed words and unseen emotions. Then something snapped. One afternoon, as Clara dusted, a photo of Thomas laughing struck her. In that moment of vulnerability, she spoke. "I want my daughter to be a doctor. She's bright, but it feels impossible sometimes." The room hung with tension, the unspoken words swirling as if they could bind their fates. Thomas turned, the flicker of surprise crossing his face before it morphed back into resignation. Why did he feel anything at all? Why did she dare share? Uncertainty washed over her, and she realized she no longer just wanted to clean his home. She yearned to unlock his soul. But the stakes were higher now. The walls grew thicker, and his family was soon to impose their will on him. Clara felt the unbearable weight of that truth pressed down upon her. Would he share her belief in integrity, or would he succumb to their relentless ambitions? And as that voice in his head grew louder, a voice that echoed her fears, would he dismiss her plea for bravery? Clara locked eyes with him, hope and desperation colliding within the hollow space between them. Time stood still, and she sensed that this was the turning point. But what if he chose forever to remain trapped in the shadows of expectations? As the phone rang suddenly, breaking the silence, Thomas flinched, his expression one of impending dread. This call had the power to shift everything for both of them. Would it bring liberation or further shackles? Clara's heart raced, for now they faced their crossroads, and the outcome loomed like a dark storm on the horizon, threatening to engulf them both in its fury. Clara held her breath as the phone rang on, its persistent tone piercing through the stillness. Thomas remained frozen, the shadows of anxiety flickering across his face. She could see the turmoil within him, the unyielding weight of expectations pressing down on his spirit. Whatever news awaited on the other end of that line felt monumental, the type that could either shatter their fragile connection or build a bridge to understanding. "Answer it," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt an urgency rising within her, embedded in the knowledge that a single decision could alter the course of both their lives. Thomas turned to her, the moment stretching between them like elastic, pulling taut. His hand hovered over the receiver, trembling slightly as he processed her encouragement. "What if it's bad news?" he asked, skepticism threading his tone. That's a risk we have to take, Clara replied, surprised at the conviction in her own words. You can't let fear dictate your actions anymore. The words resonated deeply with her own struggles, yet she felt invigorated. What if, beyond their roles, they could truly motivate each other to break free from the chains holding them captive, the unfulfilled aspirations, the stifling roles imposed by their circumstances? He finally placed his hand on the phone, a flicker of resolve igniting in his eyes, and lifted it. With a deep breath, he answered, "Hello?" Clara watched him intently, her own heart racing alongside his. The minutes seemed to drag on, each second infused with the potential for change. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just a bystander in this moment. She was a participant in a bigger dialogue, one that intersected her desire for Lisa's future with the hope that Thomas might understand his own worth. As Thomas spoke, she could see the layers of his guarded demeanor begin to peel away. His voice softened, an awareness dawning upon him. Clara felt her own transformation reflected in his response, a burgeoning realization that there was so much more to life than mere survival. Was Thomas preparing to embrace the vulnerability that Clara had unearthed in him? After what felt like an eternity, Thomas ended the call. His demeanor had shifted. He appeared lighter, a sheen of clarity glinting in his eyes. "It's my sister. She's booking a flight to discuss the family plans. She wants me to re-engage with the company," he said, folding his hands in his lap, contemplating the implications. "But maybe this is a chance to explain myself." Clara's heart soared. This was their moment, yet a flicker of apprehension tugged at her. Could he truly step away from the family's suffocating grasp? "You must stand your ground, Thomas. You have a voice that deserves to be heard, not muted by expectations. You owe it to yourself." His gaze sharpened, a hint of determination breaking through the chaos. "And what about you, Clara? What do you want?" The simplicity of that question struck deeper than she anticipated. Clara took a moment, the gaze of his uncertain but willing soul nudging her into reflection. "I want Lisa to see her dreams realized. I want her to believe that she can break through barriers." A flicker of understanding passed between them, an unspoken promise hanging in the air. In that vulnerable moment, Clara recognized the spark of ambition igniting within Thomas, as if her own drive mirrored back at her through him, filling her with resolve. But as they faced this pivotal juncture, the unsettling reality of the looming conversation with his sister loomed heavy in the room. Would he truly confront the power of his truth? And what would it mean for Clara and Lisa if he chose differently? The weight of their potential intertwining futures threatened to swallow them both as silence settled once more between them, both hesitant, yet hopeful. As Thomas prepared to confront his sister, Clara felt an alarming sense of urgency. Would his newfound resolve be enough in the face of familial pressure? And more importantly, could she rise alongside him, armed with the courage to challenge her own fears? Whatever lay ahead, the path was fraught with consequences, and it was time to step boldly into the unknown. Thomas's thoughts swirled as he anticipated his sister's arrival. How could he articulate himself in a manner that honored both his own ambitions and the family's expectations? The imminent confrontation loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash the pent-up emotions he had kept tucked away for so long. He felt a flicker of doubt invade his newly discovered resolve. What if his sister dismissed him outright? What if his voice went unheard? He rose from the couch, pacing the room, each step fueled by an escalating mix of anxiety and determination. Clara's words reverberated within him, echoing the realization that being true to himself meant risking the approval he had sought for years. But risk could also open doors, and freeing himself from the heavy chains of expectation might just carve out a space for the life he truly wanted. Clara observed him, sensing the shift within. With a subtle nod, she encouraged him to harness the nerves, shape them into a shield rather than a barrier. "This is your moment, Thomas. Don't allow fear to twist your tongue. Speak from your heart." He halted and turned towards her, the intensity in his gaze igniting a quiet fury within him. She was right. It was time to embrace the truth of who he was. Despite the echoes of judgment that loomed just beyond the door, Thomas found his footing. As he prepared mentally, Clara too confronted her own growing apprehension. The desire to protect Lisa, to be the sturdy anchor to her dreams, filled her with an alarming sense of urgency. She needed to become a catalyst for Lisa's future. But how could she do that effectively if her own fears echoed in her mind? "Thomas," Clara spoke up softly, "what you're doing for yourself, it's not just for you. It's a message to anyone who feels trapped, including Lisa. You're giving her permission to dream bigger, to challenge the boundaries set around her." With her words as a lifeline, Clara started drafting a plan of her own. Maybe she had the power to provide Lisa with the resources and support she needed to flourish, regardless of the decisions made by Thomas's family. Each step she took toward her professional development could be a step toward Lisa's freedom, shaping a world where the weight of expectations felt lighter. The realization invigorated her, lighting a path she hadn't fully recognized before. In that moment, an unforeseen determination surged through her. Clara suddenly envisioned the lives they could lead, Thomas stepping courageously into his truth, and Clara confidently dismantling the barriers surrounding her own aspirations. It was time to dig deeper, not only into their personal stories, but into the construct of their shared dream for Lisa. "Thomas," she said, her heart pounding, "what if your sister isn't the only one needing to understand? We can do this together. You confront your past, and I'll step forward for Lisa. It's time for clarity on all fronts." The intensity of her words drove through him. If Clara could take such a definitive stance, so could he. He needed to show both himself and his family that his worth wasn't defined by them, but by his capacity to make choices aligned with his own dreams. A newfound vigor bubbled within him, coursing through his veins like fire. When the doorbell rang, the moment felt electric, charged with the weight of possibility. Both Clara and Thomas exchanged a knowing glance, a silent agreement that the time for change had indeed arrived. As he approached the door, Thomas's heart raced. Would he rise to the occasion, or would the familiar currents pull him under? What words would greet his sister, hopeful declarations of independence or remnants of doubt? The handle turned slowly under his grip, and as he opened the door, a flood of conflicting emotions washed over him. He saw his sister standing there, poised and confident, yet something unspoken lingered between them, hinting at the complexity of the battle he was about to wage. This was the pivotal moment. The confrontation loomed large, its outcomes uncertain. Little did Clara know, the consequences of this moment would demand her to confront not just their shared aspirations, but also her own hidden vulnerabilities. Would she be prepared to face the truth of what lay ahead? As the door swung open, Thomas was greeted by Lisa's calm exterior, her confidence a stark contrast to the tempest brewing inside him. She stepped into his home, the threshold crossing from family duties to a space where he hoped to find his own voice. The air felt thick, charged with the unspoken tension between them. "Hi, Thomas," she said, a bright smile briefly softening the atmosphere. "I brought the papers you asked for." Her typical cheerfulness was tempting, yet beneath it lay an unease he could almost taste, the concern for familial propriety looming like an unwelcome guest at the dinner table. He had prepared for this moment, yet his mind felt a jumble of words and emotions. What was the best way to express the complexities of his desires versus the expectations that had bound him in chains for so long? "Thanks, Lisa," he replied, gathering his breath. The faint hint of his previous resolve fluttered within him like a weak flame. "I wanted to talk about something important." Lisa's eyes narrowed slightly in curiosity, and he hesitated, aware of the unsaid burden on their shoulders. It would be easier to stay silent, to shape his thoughts into the mold of familial expectations. But as Clara's earlier words echoed in his mind, he couldn't suppress the need for authenticity any longer. "Let's sit down," he suggested, gesturing toward the living room. They took their places on opposite ends of the couch, each feeling the invisible divide that stretched between them. Thomas cleared his throat. "I've been making some changes in my life." The statement felt monumental, yet it was only a soft introduction to the storm he was about to unleash. I want to pursue a career path that aligns more closely with my passions." Lisa appeared taken aback. "What do you mean? Are you talking about the architecture program?" "Yes." His voice finally found a steadiness, resonating with his ambition. I know this might not match what the family envisioned for me, but—" He faltered, the weight of their collective history creeping back in, threatening to cloud his newfound clarity. "But I need to follow my own path." Silence enveloped them, thickening the walls of the small room. Lisa's expression transitioned from surprise to confusion, and doubt creased her forehead. I don't understand. What about the family? What about the business?" Her pragmatic approach, the familiar reliance on their interconnected roles, clashed violently with his need for self-determination. But this was not just his struggle. If he aimed for change, she needed to understand, to see the broader implications. "Lisa, it's not just about me. It's about challenging what we've been told is expected of us. You deserve to dream without constraints, too. I don't want you to feel tied down by the same family expectations that have weighed me down." His tone shifted from nervous to impassioned, as thoughts of Clara and Lisa's potential liberated future fueled his words. Still, apprehension lingered in her eyes. Thomas could sense it twisting and turning within her, a reflection of the doubts he had fought so hard to dispel. "But what if you fail? What if this is all a mistake?" Her question cut deeper than he anticipated. The shadows of uncertainty loomed over his ambitions like menacing clouds. But as he faced her, he felt the protective shield of Clara's words wrapping around him. "I don't know if I will succeed, but isn't it worth the risk to at least try? To know I'm pursuing something I care about?" Lisa's gaze softened slightly. "Maybe." The hesitation in her voice couldn't disguise the flicker of hope peeking through the turmoil. As they both grappled with the importance of this conversation, the enormity of their choices unfolded. It was about more than just him. It was an invitation for her to rethink her own boundaries. Would she cling tightly to the chains imposed by their upbringing, or would she take the leap alongside him? Suddenly the door swung open again, interrupting a moment that threatened to change everything. Clara stepped in, wearing a determined expression. "I need to discuss something crucial with you both." The sudden urgency in her tone shifted the dynamics of the room, and a different kind of tension filled the air. Thomas's heart raced. What revelation lay ahead that would intertwine all their fates even further? The weight of Clara's entrance pressed heavily on the moment. Thomas felt the unvoiced tension shift as he exchanged glances with Lisa, both bracing themselves for whatever news Clara had brought. Her presence, filled with urgency, shattered the fragile calm they had been constructing together. "I've been thinking," Clara began, eyes darting between her brother and Lisa, "about our family's future. There's something we need to address. It's not just business, it's about what we truly want." Thomas's pulse quickened. Clara had always been the backbone of their family's operations, a constant in the chaos of expectations, and he held his breath, expecting her words to either reinforce the suffocation or break the bonds they had all felt for so long. "Going through the business documents, it's clear that things aren't sustainable as they are. We've grown complacent, and it's killing not only our profits but our spirits," she continued, each word testing the foundations that had long supported their lives. "We can no longer pretend everything is fine." Thomas felt a spark of rebellion ignite within him. Clara's admission echoed his own burgeoning desires, his yearning to break free from not just familial duties but also the suffocating hold of tradition. As Clara elaborated on her thoughts, revealing plans for restructuring, he found courage swelling within him. This was the moment to seize, not just for himself, but for them all. "So you're saying," Danny interrupted, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "that we should uproot everything?" Her tone was sharp, but beneath it was veiled fear. "What would that mean for us?" "Jenny and I are planning to launch a new initiative, one that aligns with future trends, while still drawing from our heritage. We can pivot toward sustainability and community focus, but it requires all of us to be on board." Clara's enthusiasm rose with every word, yet the flicker of hesitation lingered in her eyes. Her vision was bold, revolutionary even, but it also felt like a tightening of the vice grip on Thomas. The fear of stepping away from tradition battled against the excitement of possibility. "If we're going to do this, we need to start fresh," he managed to articulate, finding strength with every syllable. That means moving away from just wanting to satisfy our parents or fit into a mold we never truly endorsed. Lisa's brows knitted together. You mean like your architecture program? Her voice was a mix of skepticism and hope, as if she was weighing his words against a scale of possibilities. Exactly, Thomas replied with unexpected fervor. This isn't just about the business. It's about redefining our success. We have to invest in what speaks to us. If we don't, we'll be adhering to a dream that isn't ours at all. Their eyes locked for a brief moment, a silent agreement passing between them. With Clara's vision as a foundation, he saw a path forward for both himself and Lisa. This was no longer just about his aspirations. It was about the future they could create together, liberated from the ghosts of their past. A peculiar warmth wrapped around him as he contemplated it, the images of sketches, blueprints, and dreams mingling with practical discussions of sustainability and innovation. But with newfound determination came an unsettling urge of doubt. Thomas could feel the shadows of potential failure in the corner of his mind, whispering warnings about their hasty aspirations. What if it doesn't work? He asked, unable to swallow the rising anxiety coursing through him. What if this is just another way to destroy what little stability we have? Clara's demeanor shifted. We'll never know unless we try, she said softly, her voice carrying an edge of challenge. And what if we succeed? As the uncertainty intertwined with the surge of hope, Thomas understood that the conversation had transcended personal ambitions. It was now a collective journey. Would they reshape their identities or remain shackled to an inherited destiny? In that cluttered living room, possibilities exploded, yet the threat of trepidation loomed larger than ever. The moment of embracing change hung heavily in the air, as realities intertwined with dreams, urging action. Let's make a decision, Clara urged, stretching a hand to both of them. Thomas hesitated, the weight of the choice heavily clinging to his shoulders, but also brimming with potential. What had started as a simple conversation had evolved into a pivotal crossroad, one that would determine not only their paths but also who they would ultimately become. And as doubt clashed with determination, Thomas realized the time had come to solidify their collective dreams against the backdrop of familial expectations. They could either follow the road less traveled or remain mired in the shadows of past failures. The door to new possibilities swung ajar, yet would they dare to step through? A sudden ring of Thomas's phone shattered the moment, jolting him back to reality. He glanced at the screen right before answering. The name displayed sent a shiver down his spine. This would change everything once more. Thomas took a deep breath, letting the name on the phone wash over him like a cold wave. Stephen. His former college mentor and now a successful entrepreneur, Stephen had always been a reliable source of knowledge, one who had believed in Thomas's potential before he even did. Yet that trust had come with expectations, a roadmap of sorts that defined success in a rigid, traditional manner. As he answered, he could already hear the excitement in Stephen's voice. Thomas, I've been trying to reach you. We've got an opportunity that could change everything for you. Thomas felt the pressure mount. Here was a man who had once mapped out his life, and now it seemed like he was offering him a golden ticket. The lingering doubts about Clara's proposals flickered in the back of his mind. This opportunity could be a distraction from their new path, the very path he felt drawn to explore with Clara and Lisa. I've been rethinking some projects, and your name came up, Stephen continued, oblivious to the internal struggle unfolding within Thomas. I need someone with your knack for design. We're launching a project focused on sustainable living, and I thought of you. Sustainable living. The words echoed with Clara's vision like a harmonious chord. His pulse quickened as his mind danced between old ambitions and fresh, unexplored frontiers. That sounds incredible, he admitted, feeling the excitement swell, but also the weight of responsibility creeping back in. But I'm in the middle of a family business overhaul. Exactly. This is a chance for you to lead within that space, Stephen urged, unintentionally pushing Thomas further into a corner. You could secure your family's future while establishing your own identity. Picture it, a project that leverages your creative talent while staying true to the sustainable goals Clara is advocating for. It's a win-win. There it was. the tangled web of loyalty, expectation, and ambition snapping tighter around him. On one side stood Clara, pioneering a transformative path for their family business and igniting hope. On the other was Stephen, a beacon of success and an achievable professional validation. What if I fail? He found himself questioning, a sudden wave of vulnerability crashing onto the shore of his burgeoning resolve. What if this just leads to more disappointment and chaos? You've got to foster courage, Stephen advised, somehow sensing the conflict but unable to grasp its depth. Risks yield rewards, Thomas. The question is, what does success mean to you? His heart raced, caught between the fractured remnants of his past and a future laden with possibilities. It was more than a choice between two paths. It was a confrontation with himself. Was he prepared to abandon the familiar comforts of the past for a future still veiled in uncertainty? The phone call ended with vague reassurances and promises of support, but Thomas hung up with nothing but questions swirling relentlessly in his mind. Breathing deeply, he turned back to Clara and Lisa, who awaited news with eager but anxious expressions. He hesitated, unwilling to voice his dilemma just yet. The call from Stephen had pushed him to the brink of clarity, but left him adrift in uncertainty. I think we need to explore the paths ahead more deeply. What do you mean? Clara asked, reading the conflict etched on his face. I got a job offer today. It's related to the sustainable initiatives we've been discussing, but I don't want to rush into anything that pulls me away from our goals. Lisa exchanged a glance with Clara, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The struggle within Thomas was palpable, as if the very air thickened with the tension of unmade choices. Their collective aspirations were now hanging precariously in the balance, facing another unexpected storm. Maybe it's not just about choosing one over the other, Lisa finally suggested, her voice cautious yet undeniably hopeful. Perhaps this represents a blend, an integration of your ambitions. But could he merge the past with an uncertain future? Could he truly make a decision that harmonized the weight of tradition with the allure of innovation? With Clara's expectations bearing down on him and the tantalizing prospect of his own legacy flashing before his eyes, Thomas felt the decisive moment approaching, ready to shape not only his own identity, but that of his family as well. The path ahead beckoned with both promise and peril. As he steeled himself for the conversation to come, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the precipice of a monumental crossroads. The lingering question remained. Would he carve out a new identity, or yield to the relentless tide of expectation? And just as he steadied his breath to share his thoughts, another notification lit up his phone. An unanticipated message that would unravel everything he thought he understood about his present situation. Thomas stared at the glowing screen, an unexpected wave of adrenaline coursing through him. The notification was from a number he didn't recognize. Curiosity clashed with the tumult of emotions swirling within him. Did he dare to entertain more uncertainties? Yet, against his better judgment, he clicked it open, the words beckoning like a siren's song. Hey, it's Clara's brother Matt. I just heard about your offer from Stephen, the message read. We need to talk. There are things happening that you should know. His heart pounded. Why would Matt bring this up? His brother-in-law had always kept a low profile, preferring to operate in the shadows of Clara's vivid world. Today, however, urgency dripped from every word. Recurring thoughts of responsibilities that tethered him to Clara and the family business momentarily faded, replaced with an overwhelming desire for clarity in this growing fog of confusion. What does he know? Thomas muttered, eyes darting from the screen to Clara and Lisa, who were engrossed in their own conversation. He felt an instinctual pull. This could be the additional information he needed to make his decision about Stephen's offer, or it could lead deeper into chaos. I have to go, he finally declared, the words escaping before he fully processed them. The look of surprise on Clara's face pierced his resolve, but he pressed on. I need to understand what Matt is talking about. Do you want us to come? Lisa asked. Hesitance etched into her voice. He shook his head, weighing the implications of dragging them into this unknown. No, I need to do this alone. I'll be back soon. After a moment of silence, Clara nodded, clearly disappointed, but recognizing the importance of the moment. Just be careful, okay? The drive to Matt's place felt longer than usual, but the weight of anxiety transformed into focus. He reminded himself of Clara's staunch belief in their vision and of the renewed energy they had been cultivating together. Yet Matt had always been the unpredictable element, always operating at the edge of his own ambition. What new narrative would he introduce into the tangled storyline of Thomas's life? As he parked in front of Matt's modest apartment, doubt gnawed at him. What if this new information only further complicated his dilemma? He took a deep breath, rapped his knuckles on the door, and immediately felt a rush of vulnerability. "Hey, Thomas," Matt greeted, an unexpected brightness illuminating his demeanor. He waved him in, motioning for him to take a seat across from a cluttered dining table littered with papers. As the door clicked shut, the weight of quiet potential settled between them. "Listen," Matt began, leaning forward. "I heard about your offer with Stephen, and I think it's crucial to consider what's happening behind the scenes. There are changes coming that could reshape everything." "What do you mean?" Thomas challenged, the gravity of his words pulling him closer. "I've been working on a few things in the family business. Big projects. Projects that integrate sustainable principles like what Clara is advocating for. We're on the verge of something transformative, but you have to ask yourself, are you ready to take this leap?" He pondered the implications of Matt's declaration. It was equivalent to a door opening to a world Thomas hadn't realized was accessible to him. Would this new path align with what he and Clara envisioned? Or would it serve as another distraction, leading him further down a rabbit hole of expectation? "I think you're standing at a critical junction," Matt pressed, his intensity drawing Thomas out of his contemplation. "But the truth is, aligning with Stephen could either elevate you or confine you within his vision." The walls of his choices pressed against him, each statement from Matt reverberating in his mind. Thomas had sought clarity, yet now he found himself enveloped in a thick layer of uncertainty. What would it mean to consolidate everything? The family business overhaul, the sustainable future Clara dreamed of, and the tantalizing offer from Stephen. The question echoed within him. Where did he truly belong in this unfolding narrative? As he leaned back, staring into the blurred landscape of his aspirations, he realized that Matt's appearance had thrown the lever on his internal turmoil. He was not merely at a crossroads, he was on the edge of a precipice that demanded an answer. Would he have the courage to forge a path that honored not just his obligations, but also the parts of himself that longed to break free? Before he could respond, Matt leaned forward again. "You need to act soon, Thomas. That message from Stephen won't wait forever. Things are shifting fast. Make sure you don't get left behind." Thomas's pulse quickened, realization sinking in. The time was drawing near for a decision that would alter the course of not just his future, but the fabric of his family's legacy. He took in Matt's words, balancing his options. The road ahead appeared treacherous and uncertain, yet it beckoned with the promise of rediscovery. "What's your next move?" Thomas asked, his voice steadier than he felt. As Matt began to outline his plans further, a new notification blinked on Thomas's phone, fracturing the atmosphere once more. Another call, another unexpected twist in this whirlwind of choice. What awaited him now? Would this latest message prove to be an anchor or lead him adrift into deeper waters of reflection? Thomas's heart raced as he glanced at the new notification. The urgency of Matt's tone mingled with the relentless beeping of his phone, a siren ringing in his mind. He couldn't ignore it. Not now. Slipping his gaze back to Matt, he pressed the screen to reveal yet another message from Stephen. "Meeting confirmed. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Let's discuss your future with us." Just like that, the stakes cranked higher. Tomorrow would present an ultimatum, a chance for a defined path or the risk of tumbling into ambiguity. "I've got to make a choice," Thomas murmured, the realization like ice brimming within him. Matt's eyes sharpened with intensity. "Exactly. You need to understand what you're up against. Stephen's a formidable player, but he doesn't operate alone. The implications of your decision won't just echo in your profession. They will ripple through your relationships, your values." Thomas's mind raced. Could he truly step into a world molded by someone else's expectations? Following Stephen's direction might yield immediate benefits, yet would it cost him the integrity he upheld with Clara? Anything less than authenticity felt like selling a piece of himself. "Why do you care, Matt?" His voice was steady, but doubt lingered in his eyes. "What's your angle in all of this?" The question hung in the air. Matt leaned back slightly, pondering. "You might think it's about protecting family or preserving legacy, but it's more than that. I see a spark in you, Thomas. You care about what you create. Sustainable initiatives, those are vital. They could launch us into new territory, one where we define success on our own terms." The flickering light of hope juxtaposed with the biting chill of fear. Could he really turn his back on the path Stephen presented? But also, what lay beyond that path? The thought of aligning with Matt's vision ignited a flicker of passion he thought had dimmed amidst the chaos. "Tell me more about what you're working on," Thomas urged, the urgency of the moment crystallizing into determination. "If we're really on the verge of transformation, I want in. I want to know how it can integrate with what Clara and I built." Matt opened up, his enthusiasm spilling over. He detailed plans for a community-driven initiative focusing on environmental restoration, harnessing the power of local resources to redefine sustainability. With Clara's vision for the family business and Matt's strategic insights, it could flourish. Thomas felt the first signs of clarity, threading their plans together, an innovation pushing against the tide of traditional expectations. The heavier questions still simmered beneath the surface. What if Matt's ambition clashed with Clara's ideals? Was he prepared to put it all on the line? These considerations clouded his thoughts, yet the possibilities beckoned enticingly. "Okay," Thomas said, the weight of the decision palpable between them. "Let's make a plan. But I need to confront Stephen first. Know my parameters before I dive into this." "Are you ready for that?" Matt cautioned, his tone shifting to serious. "This isn't just a business meeting, it's a power struggle. You need to go in with clarity about what you want." Thomas nodded, the internal conflict between his loyalty to Clara and his burgeoning ambitions skimming the edges of his consciousness. Was he prepared to stake a claim in this dual reality, where professional ambition intertwined with familial obligations? It was no longer just about a job offer. It was about identity, purpose, and the future he wanted to create. With a deep breath, he texted Clara, letting her know he'd be home soon to share what he had learned. The message felt significant, an outreach, an invitation for collaboration. Yet a fundamental truth nagged at him. Could he balance these competing desires? As he stood, ready to face the impending decisions ahead, Matt's voice broke through his thoughts one last time. "Just remember, Thomas, trust yourself, but don't shy away from confronting what you truly want. This is your life. Don't let someone else dictate it." The weight of those words anchored him, but the clock was ticking. He had a meeting with Stephen, and the tides were changing rapidly. He'd have to confront and articulate his growing sense of self amidst the chaos. As he stepped out of the apartment, a surge of determination washed over him. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but he could no longer remain passive. Tomorrow would not just be a meeting, it was a moment of reckoning. What awaited him in the boardroom? Would he stand firm against the tides of pressure, or would he free fall into uncertainty? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Thomas felt the gravity of his choices pulse beneath his skin, a storm on the verge of breaking. Thomas spent the night in restless contemplation, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him like a shroud. Thoughts darted through his mind like fireflies, brief, flickering, and elusive. The meeting with Stephen loomed like a thundercloud, promising a torrential downpour of decisions that could alter the course of his life forever. He tossed and turned, replaying every word he had exchanged with Matt, trying to piece together a strategy that balanced his ambitions with his loyalty to Clara. Morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the room. His reflection in the glass caught his eye, and for a moment, he scarcely recognized himself. He looked heavy with the burden of expectation and fear. Had he been so adrift that he could no longer see the man he intended to be? Drawing in a deep breath, he steeled himself for the day ahead. As he prepared, each movement felt purposeful, a mini ritual of affirmation. The suit he donned was more than fabric. It was a skin he intended to grow into, something that spoke to professionalism and determination. He swallowed hard, mentally rehearsing the boundaries he planned to set with Stephen. There was no room for ambiguity. He had to know where he stood. When he arrived at the office, the atmosphere felt charged, electric with anticipation. Stephen's office was on the top floor, symbolic of power, just beyond the reach of the ordinary. Thomas entered the elevator, his heart pounded in rhythm with the ascent. Each second stretched, a reminder of the choice that lay before him, an invitation to align with ambition or remain anchored to loyalty. Stepping off the elevator, he approached the conference room where the meeting would take place. Pushing the door slightly ajar, he caught sight of Stephen. There he was, poised and confident, embodying the very authority Thomas both respected and feared. "Ah, Thomas," Stephen greeted without looking up, his voice smooth as polished stone. "I've been looking forward to our chat." "Me too," Thomas replied, trying to keep his tone even. He took a seat across from Stephen, feeling the unyielding glare of the decorative lights overhead. It was a battleground disguised as a boardroom. "I want to discuss your potential here with us," Stephen said, leaning back, a smug confidence radiating through his posture. "I believe you have the talent we need to drive some exciting initiatives. We could vastly expand our market potential." Thomas sensed the understated power in those words. It struck him that joining Stephen's vision could open doors but would obscure the very voice he sought to strengthen. "I appreciate your faith in my abilities, Stephen," he began, "but I need to clarify my priorities first." The mention of his limits caught Stephen off guard, and his brows knit together momentarily. "What are you talking about?" "I'm offering a lucrative opportunity, a chance to rise quickly in this industry." "It's about more than just money, Stephen," Thomas responded, his voice beginning to solidify with confidence. "I want to contribute to something meaningful, something that reflects what I value and what Clara stands for in the family business." Stephen's demeanor shifted, the warm friendliness replaced with a piercing focus. "You're saying you want to prioritize your whims over significant professional growth? That's reckless, Thomas. Passion won't pay the bills." "No," Thomas countered, "but authenticity might. I can't compromise my principles for a role in a machine that doesn't resonate with me." The tension between them thickened, electric and tangible. In that moment, Thomas connected deeply with his resolve. He realized that surrendering to fear wasn't an option. He had to advocate for himself, however uncomfortable that might feel. As Stephen's expression morphed to a mixture of frustration and intrigue, it was clear that Thomas's defiance had startled him. "You're navigating dangerous waters," he warned, leaning forward slightly. "You might think you can keep Clara's ideals intact while playing in my arena, but be ready, there are risks involved." Thomas met his gaze. "I am aware of the risks, and I'm ready to face them. If my future lies here, it must align with who I am. If that's a deal-breaker, then perhaps we aren't the right fit." The silence hung between them, a test of wills. The outcome of this conversation could redefine Thomas's future, encapsulating either a bold step forward or a retreat into the shadows of his doubt. Would he emerge victorious or falter under the pressure? The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly, reminding him that he couldn't hesitate. The stakes had never been higher. What would Stephen say next? Would he pull back or challenge Thomas further? Thomas stared into Stephen's eyes, steadying his breath as he dug deep for the conviction he felt. The air between them bristled with tension, every second stretching taut with unspoken possibilities. He needed to assert his stance without compromising the essence of who he was. "I understand your perspective about business, but I want to build something that aligns with my values. If that leads me away from traditional paths, then so be it. I refuse to become a cog in a system that doesn't allow for creativity and authenticity," Thomas declared, his voice firm yet resolute. Silence reigned briefly before Stephen leaned back in his chair, the challenge seemingly invigorating him. "You're looking at this as all or nothing. But you can have your cake and eat it too, Thomas. I can mentor you, help you grow, and propel you to places you haven't even dreamed of. You just need to trust the process." "But at what cost?" Thomas countered, unyielding. "Your version of success doesn't accommodate the kind of change I want to enact. I refuse to sideline opportunities to explore innovation and sustainability. It matters not only to me, but to the legacy Clara and I envision for our family." An eyebrow arched on Stephen's face, his surprise evident. You do realize the stakes aren't just about you, right? The family business is built on decades of tradition, and it's not something you can just rewrite. You can't separate the past from the future. With steely determination, Thomas shook his head. Which is why I want to merge those elements, not discard them. My discussion with Matt showed me that our family's focus should encompass evolving sustainability. That isn't a rejection of our past, but a transformation of it. Stephen shifted in his seat. The powerful entrepreneur clearly hadn't anticipated this level of pushback. So, what are you proposing? The words bubbled forth with clarity and conviction. I propose we redefine what it means to operate successfully within our lineage. I envision a collaborative venture where we contribute to local ecosystems while utilizing innovative design. By combining your resources and my passion, we can create something meaningful beyond profit margins. If this doesn't align with your plans, then I guess we're back at square one. The room echoed with silence, charged with anticipation. Thomas kept his gaze locked on Stephen, willing to embrace whatever was to follow. He knew that there was no turning back now. Every heartbeat resonated with his conviction. Finally, Stephen broke the silence, leaning forward once more, his demeanor more contemplative than before. I see your point, but transformation comes with risk, and risks can make or break careers. Are you ready to gamble on an untested direction? Thomas's mind flashed to Clara, to Lisa's ambitions, and he felt the gravity of their expectations pressing him forward. This wasn't just his fight. This was their future, intertwined and contingent on bold decisions. I'm ready, he replied, the words rolling off his tongue with renewed confidence. We need to take this risk, not just for ourselves, but for the next generation. A business that supports sustainable initiatives will empower others to follow suit. It aligns with what we value, and it will carry our family legacy forward into a future we can be proud of. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the air saturated with potential. Then, a hint of a smile broke through Stephen's serious expression. You might just be onto something, Thomas. Let's rethink how we can incorporate sustainability into our next venture. If you want to lead that charge, I'll support you. The relief that washed over Thomas felt almost surreal. The path unfolded before him, no longer hazy or constricting. In that moment, he understood that by standing firm in his truth, he had forged new possibilities, not only for himself, but for his family and their burgeoning enterprise. As they discussed the framework for integrating sustainable practices into the business, Thomas felt a sense of clarity. He was no longer tethered solely to the expectations of the past. Each conversation point expanded like a canvas, allowing their visions to merge into a powerful narrative of purpose. As the meeting concluded, a flicker of warmth radiated within him, an authentic affirmation of who he was and what he could achieve. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey toward self-actualization, and he was ready to embrace every challenge ahead. Later that evening, he returned home to find Clara poring over paperwork in the living room. Her eyes lit up upon seeing him. How did it go? I made my case, Thomas replied, a smile gracing his lips. And it ended up being much more than I anticipated. Stephen's on board for an overhaul focused on sustainability, exactly in line with what we discussed. Clara's expression shifted from surprise to joy as she processed the news, clearly unable to contain her excitement. You did it. I knew you would. But there's more. He continued, choosing his words carefully. This isn't just about a business plan. It's about us redefining our legacy together for the generations to come. I want you and me both to be hands-on in this, making our imprint on the future. The acknowledgement that they were aligned in their ambitions filled both of them with exhilaration. In the days that followed, with Clara's unwavering support and Lisa's enthusiasm sparking creativity, they constructed a burgeoning blueprint for their family legacy, one that intertwined innovation and sustainability into every corner of their enterprise. And later, in moments of reflection, Thomas understood that he had effectively transcended the pressures of familial expectations. He had learned to see challenges not as deterrents but as opportunities for growth. Clara's dreams for Lisa were now being mirrored in his ambitions. and equally their pursuit of purpose had revitalized both of their spirits. He stood tall, not only as Clara's partner, but as an individual capable of navigating the intricacies of his desires with the integrity that felt so right. The path they chose illuminated new horizons. His heart swelled, enveloped in deep satisfaction, not just for the transformations taking place within the business, but for the comprehensive journey of individual and shared aspirations they had embraced together. In that moment of solidarity, Thomas felt nothing short of liberated, aware that he had not only conquered the obstacles set before him, but had charted a course toward fulfillment, rich with promise. And unbeknownst to them, they were serving as a beacon of possibility, an embodiment of what it meant to rise above expectations and live authentically. Now, dear viewer, this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and empower you. Leave a like now because your support feeds the algorithm and allows us to bring you this content to the forefront. Comment how Thomas's journey impacted you, what revelations you had, and what you think will happen next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion to understand the power of authenticity and transformation. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.